What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Episode 94. Welcome, everybody, to the show. We're recording here on a Monday morning. Psyched to be here with a great guest, so ready to get it going.
As Devin said, no warming up the bullpen. We do have a great guest on Tablesetters, Savannah McCann, one of the rising baseball voices in media. Of course, a trusted presence in the Washington Nationals fan base. So she's been working with MASN and Nats Extra, where she covers the Nationals from the dugout to the booth with experience at NBC Sports Washington, MLB.com, and Baseball America. She's covered all 30 MLB teams, of course, the MLB draft, the All-Star weekend, and more. A pleasure to have you on here, Savannah. How's it going?
Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be here. And I mean, talking baseball is one of my favorite things. So just excited to get into it and talk about some prospects, the Nats, and everything else around the sport.
So, Savannah, before we get into all the details, give us a little bit of background on yourself as far as how did you get into baseball media and how did you know that's what you wanted to do?
So my story with covering baseball is definitely a little different. Baseball and I found each other much later in life than I think most people who grow up saying, I'm going to be a baseball reporter from the minute they see their first baseball game. I was not one of those people. I was of the camp of baseball slow, it's boring, it's nerdy. And I wanted to cover sports, and football was my sport. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And I take it for granted of how lucky I am for the opportunity to come around. I was working at NBC Sports Washington, and I liked baseball, but it was not my favorite sport. It was not what I thought I would do with my life. And they said, listen, you're 10th in line to cover football. So you can wait, but we don't know when that opportunity is going to open. It's the year 2019. The baseball season's about to start. The Nats are doing okay. Do you want to hop on the Nats beat? You can shadow one of our beat writers. We'll see how it goes for the season. And then you can tell us if you want to go back to football. The stars align. Baseball finds me. I find baseball. The Nationals win the World Series, my first year covering the team. And I looked around, I was like, why did nobody tell me baseball is the greatest sport on planet Earth? Like, this is incredible. I've been missing out for all these years. So now I'm screaming from the rooftops, like, did everyone realize baseball is this cool? It's fun. It's not boring. It's not slow. So I feel like I'm one of those people that I'm trying to change the narrative and get people my age, younger, females, like anyone who will listen to me. I'm like, you're wrong. I was wrong too. It's okay to be wrong, but please come to the dark side. Like, this is the greatest sport in the world.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing about baseball in 2025, as you mentioned, changing the narrative of what the preconceived notion of what it is. And shout out to what you're doing, John Boy Media, the et cetera, all those people out there that are changing this feel on what baseball was originally thought to be for those people on the outside looking in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's been so many rule changes too that kind of help speed the game up a little bit. So I'm like, no, the game's not 5 hours anymore. Don't worry. But I've also come to appreciate and love 5 hour long games or games that are 1-0 because I'm like, you don't understand. You're watching a pitching duel. Like, this is incredible. So, and then I worked at Baseball America, which is as nerdy, and I love my coworkers at Baseball America, but that is about as nerdy as you can get. Of you are in the weeds talking about the number 65 prospect in a farm system that I never thought in a million years this is what I'm going to be passionate about. And now I'm like, let me tell you about this 16-year-old high school player that's going to be something really big in 10 years. I promise.
Yeah, we absolutely love that as well. We cover a lot of prospects on here, and we're going to get into the draft. You mentioned it in the intro and everything going on in the league, but we want to give our listeners a chance to get to know you a little better. So let's start with a quick round of 5 rapid fire questions, if you're okay with that, which is a fun way to break the ice a little bit and give people a feel for who you are beyond the dugout and post-game recap. So Devin, I'll let you kick it off with the first question.
All right. So, first one, your favorite athlete growing up could be any sport.
Jordan Stahl, easy.
Good one.
Wow, I love that pick. Favorite stadium you've ever visited, whether covering it or as a fan? This can be any stadium in sports.
So I'm originally from Pittsburgh, hence the Jordan Stahl pick. But I got very lucky at my home ballpark, PNC Park. I mean, there is not a better view in all of sports or all of baseball. So PNC Park.
Also a good one. All right. So, I like this question here. You get one walk up song heading to the plate for the rest of your career. What are you choosing?
My friends will make fun of me, but All Star by Smash Mouth has been my favorite go-to pop-up song since college. So I think it'd be ingenuine not to say All Star by Smash Mouth.
I love it. So most memorable interview you've done so far in your career?
Oh man. Um, I think talking to Dylan Cruz right after he was drafted, just seeing how excited he was and just the pure emotion on his face, he was surrounded by his whole family. Like that was a very, very special moment.
Outside of baseball, what's a passion or hobby of yours that keeps you grounded?
I do. I love to read, but I would say if I had to like pick my ideal Saturday morning, it would be going out to brunch. That's such the DC culture. So going to brunch, eating new foods, and then wandering around the city and then ending up eating lunch somewhere and then dinner. I'm a big foodie.
We love that. So we appreciate the 5 questions. So now people get to lay the land a little bit outside baseball. But what we came to talk about a little bit was the Nationals and the recent MLB draft. So they selected Eli Willits with the first overall pick, which was a surprise for everybody. What are your impressions of Willits and what you've looked into him? You mentioned the experience of Baseball America assessing prospects. And what kind of reactions have you been hearing from fans and people around the team about this selection?
I think fans were initially pretty shocked because it felt like, well, of course they're going to pick Ethan Holiday. And then Kade Anderson came into the question. It was like, oh, well, obviously they're going to pick him. So if you weren't reading all of the deep dives, Eli Willits kind of came as a name of who the heck is this kid? But when you read his profile and when you watch some of his videos and scouting and his swing, he's one of the most complete players in this draft class. I mean, he's a switch hitter out of high school. People have been comparing him and Ethan Holiday for a very long time. I think Holiday just had the buzzier name. So a lot of people just immediately went to Ethan Holiday as well. He's obviously going to be the better player. But Eli Willits is going to be an above average defender. And right now, the only question mark you really have in his profile is how much power is he going to have? But I do think that's going to end up developing. So you could have potentially just selected a complete 5-tool player in Eli Willits, but it's always going to be remembered as the draft of, well, should they have taken Ethan Holiday? So these two are going to be compared, I think, for the rest of their careers.
Yeah, there was discussion, obviously, with the background, Ethan Holiday, with the obvious lineage that we've seen with Jackson's brother and Matt Holiday. But let's not forget Eli Willits. His dad was a major leaguer. I know not at the same level, but he is the associate head baseball coach at the University of Oklahoma now. So there's a big baseball background in Eli's family as well. So it's going to be interesting, you said, to be comparing them for now until forever.
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely some pressure there. You think of other drafts, even in other sports like Greg Oden and Kevin Durant back to back and things like that. You hope it doesn't go that way necessarily. But I mean, what we've seen, he's got all the talent in the world. So you mentioned Kade Anderson. That to me was a surprise. Were you surprised at all that he was passed on? I just think of the Nationals as this franchise right now that is loaded with these young, talented position players. And other than Mackenzie Gore, they're still kind of searching for those guys that they can depend on as far as the pitching goes.
And I'm sure we're going to get into it, but I think when the Nationals made their change at GM and all of the changes that have happened right before the draft, that's when in my mind I knew, okay, Kade Anderson is not the pick. Kade Anderson felt like a pick that was going to happen before the regime change in the Nats organization. He's exactly what I expected the Nationals to want, to love. So when they made the change, it kind of went, oh, okay, Kade Anderson is definitely not who they're taking. Kade Anderson felt, I hate to say a safe pick because a college arm is never a safe pick, especially someone that's had Tommy John surgery already. But if you're going for best available, I think Kade Anderson, you could have said, that's an easy answer. We'll take Kade Anderson. It'll be great. But Eli Willits is a guy that you bet on. And I like that pick a lot better personally. So I was happy to see them pass on Kade Anderson, who I'm sure in 3 years is going to prove me wrong. He's going to be an amazing player. And I'm going to say, why the heck didn't the Nats take him? But I think where the Nats are right now, Eli Willits is an exciting member to add to this young core group of position players.
Yeah, it takes moxie to make that pick because, as you mentioned, although it's not guaranteed, there wouldn't be the criticism of the Kade Anderson pick, even if he wasn't to be fully realized. So there's a lot of to say about this pick. If it goes right, it can make the front office look like geniuses. But you mentioned the relief of Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo of their duties. And we watched things kind of spiral. We discussed it. Chase Selesky was on our show discussing CJ Abrams last year, the culture of the team, and some of the decisions that were made. But really what surprised us, which drove our conversation last week and weeks prior, was the timing of the decision, especially with the draft around the corner. That was interesting to me. And what's the feel for your end? Obviously, you mentioned it changed the direction of the draft drastically, but the timing definitely wowed both of us.
It came as more of a shock to me because when the Nationals were on that almost historic losing streak, you think this is the time. If they're going to make a change, now's the time they're going to make the change. Like, we're going to get any moment now Davey Martinez relieved from his duties. So when we didn't, in my mind, not that either of them were safe, but I thought that was going to be the opportunity to do it. So 1 week before the draft, it definitely came as a shock to me of they're making this change. But once that pick came in, I thought, okay, maybe that has something to do with it. And I knew both of them were in the last year of their contracts too. So if you weren't going to pick up their options, you have to wonder what good does it do this organization to have a manager who knows that he's out at the end of the year. So it all kind of makes sense when you think about it that way, but it's still no less shocking of I was sitting, Nationals fans will know there's a bar called Salt Line that has all of these TVs. It's right across the street from Nationals Park, owned by Ryan Zimmerman. I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I see the big headline pop up and I'm like, is this a joke? Or are people pranking me right now? And I like sprung into action. They're like, my friends are like, where are you going? I'm like, I don't know, but I need to talk to somebody about this. This is crazy.
I mean, looking back, so I know fans were frustrated with everything going on with the Nationals over the last few years. I think people expected them to take another step this year forward, even if they're not contending for the division, at least improve on win-loss total. But a few years go by, let's say, if we look back at the tenure of Rizzo and Davey Martinez, how do you ultimately think most fans are going to remember that time?
The World Series 100% comes to mind, and the two of them were instrumental in making that happen. So I think fans held on for so long too and gave both of them so many passes of they brought a World Series to DC. Like, this is a really special group of people. And of course, Mike Rizzo will forever be linked to one of the greatest trades ever in the Juan Soto trade and all the stars he brought to DC. So I do think that their time is going to be looked back on very favorably because of the World Series, because of the players you brought to this organization. But towards the end, it did get to the point where you have to wonder, how long are we going to ride the 2019 World Series until we say, okay, when's the next one though? Like, we have all these stars now. We get it. We went through the rebuild. Like, now's the time. So I do think the Nationals organization made a good call and moving on it when they did so that these two historic members of this Nationals organization can say they went out at a good time. Like, now they didn't stay too long.
Yeah, now we have Mike DiBartolo taking the reins right now, and he's sitting in GM, and we'll talk about that obviously in the offseason if that's going to be his role going forward. What insights can you share about how he may chart a different course compared to his predecessors for right now in terms of strategy, philosophy, organizational culture? Because these GMs seem like wildly different when you read the backgrounds on them.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like, Mike Rizzo was a scout through and through. Like, that is very much how he made decisions, how he based everything off of. And it kind of felt like analytics took a little bit of a back burner. Like, we saw the Nationals just recently take up a lot of different approaches and what technologies they were using and how they were kind of coming together, where other organizations did this stuff 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So the Nats definitely needed a step up in the analytical department, especially just the way the other teams are working. So when you had DiBartolo come in, and that's his bread and butter, he is an analytics guy, especially for now, nerdy baseball people like me. I'm like, oh, heck yeah, like, now's the time that we're going to get analytics and we're going to focus on that. And the Nats aren't going to be synonymous with a team that doesn't focus on analytics or focus on anything like that. And I have to apologize. My dog just came in. So if you hear someone lapping up water, it is my puppy.
Welcome in. What's your dog's name?
Her name is Stella. She's a puppy. She's a little golden retriever. She's the cutest thing in the world and wants to be the center of attention at all times. So apologies.
We love Stella over here.
Yeah, shout out to Stella. Okay, so James Wood, as far as talking about those young players, you got to talk about James Wood, probably the cornerstone of this team going forward. What's from being around the clubhouse, being around the players, what's your impression of James Wood so far? Still a youngster, but as far as like a clubhouse presence around the team.
James Wood is one of the most impressive players that I've seen on the field and off the field. No moment ever feels too big for him. He has a resting heart rate of 0. I mean, he is just so steady and calm. And talking to him, you think, is that an act? Is this just something that he's putting on? Like, it's not. He just takes in every moment and realizes how big they are, but then knows how to settle himself down where I think that's going to come in very clutch when you have a guy that is going to be a perennial all-star. He's going to be one of the biggest stars in the sport, and he doesn't act like he needs to be. It just comes to him because he's that good. I am so wildly impressed with how young he is and how good he is and how he's able to handle all of these big moments.
So we saw James Wood on the stage for the All-Star game. There was conversation about O'Neal Cruz for the people seeing him for the first time in Atlanta, because baseball fans that are casual are not exposed to any team outside their market. Going back to the conversation in the beginning, talking about changing the media presence and people have different voices. How do we get those stars out there? Because you look at James Wood, you look at O'Neal Cruz, you look at the young stars in baseball, they could captivate fans if they were able to see them. How do we get James Wood in front of a national audience and let them fall in love with the kid? Because for me, as a diehard baseball fan, you as a diehard baseball fan, we see it. How can we get the casual fans to want to tune in on a nightly basis, see someone like him?
I know we've talked so much about like let the kids play, but that is 100% how you're going to get people interested in this sport, of the people who, like me, however many years ago, thought baseball's boring. Baseball is just you hit the ball, you run. But when you have guys that are doing fun bat flips and you have guys with these awesome home run celebrations, and when you go into the dugout and they're putting on wigs, they're riding in the cart, they're doing all these fun things to make baseball as fun as we all know that it is. It's just amplifying that and letting these players have a personality outside of the sport and understanding that they are people first, and baseball is just what they do, rather than when they say something like an emotion is allowed, whether it's angry, whether it's happy, whether it's sad, like allowing them to do that and have a presence in the media of saying how they actually feel, I think is only good for the sport, because that's how you get, oh, I want to tune in to see this guy because I really liked him because of XYZ, or oh, these two teams hate each other, I have to tune in to watch that.
There's definitely a lot of that with the Dodgers and Padres. I mean, again, we're in this bubble of diehard baseball fans, so it's hard for me. Like, I almost have to like pull people outside that watch baseball periphery, like, oh, the Yankees playing or the Mets are playing here. So I think it's a big thing, rivalry, and also letting the kids play. And for people that get rubbed the wrong way, I think that's going to change with, as we mentioned, I keep saying the narrative of the media changing. The old guard of the old baseball voice out there that's resistant to change is not going to push back as much. So Devin and I are right on board with you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The personality, I think about like how long has Hard Knocks been on for the NFL, where we get a peek behind the curtain. And I feel like baseball's just starting to embrace that part, where we've seen a few Netflix documentaries on the Red Sox, but really only one of them was current times, like the last year's team. And hopefully that's a yearly thing now with different squads, because I do think it attracts, like Steve said, the casual fan.
Absolutely. And I mean, as a diehard fan too, I'm like, please, I need to see into this, like how our team's operating. So it's the perfect intro in, or you have full swing for golf. And that's now I'm a
Right.
huge golf fan, because I think it's so cool when you fall in love again with the personality of these people. And Tony Finau brings his entire family on golf trips. Like, I told my mom that. Now my mom is the biggest Tony Finau fan in the entire world, when 6 months ago, I don't think she knew who he was.
Yeah, it's important to get these fans in here and really carry the game over to the next generation. But we mentioned some of the cornerstone players, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention CJ Abrams. So at the end of last season, there was some controversy when he was sent down after breaking curfew. So just speaking from your perspective here, have you seen any change in his maturity and his approach from last year, and maybe his relationship with the organization?
1000%. CJ reported to camp early this year, and it was almost an unspoken thing where we all kind of decided, we're not going to bring it up unless he brings it up, or if the organization brings it up. Like, how are we going to all move forward? We're going to let CJ decide how he does that. And he took a huge step up as a leader, as a voice in the clubhouse. And which is crazy to think, though, is like one of the veteran guys in the Nationals clubhouse. You have all these younger guys that look to him of, hey, what do we do? How do we do it? And he has completely started leading by example. He is one of the voices in the clubhouse. So it's been awesome to see him take that step forward. So all of us media members decided, we don't need to dwell on this, because he's already showed us that he's moved on from it. It happens. He's a young kid. You are put in these situations that people like us can't even imagine the pressure or anything like that. So it's been awesome to see CJ step up. And honestly, when we talked about, what are we going to talk about today? And you said, we're going to talk about XYZ. I'm like, I did forget that happened, because it's just so not the CJ that I now know him to be. So it's awesome to see how quickly growth can happen too, especially with someone who's still so young.
Yeah, that's got to be a model of the way to handle a situation like that and not let it snowball and just get worse and worse and worse and just kind of take your medicine and move on and learn from it. So we've already talked about two guys that were part of that Juan Soto trade years ago, Abrams and Wood. We got to talk about another guy from that trade, Mackenzie Gore. And here's what's amazing to me. He has clearly taken the next step this year. We know he just had a rough start the other night against the Padres, but with all that being said, he's been very, very good this year. Clearly an ace. Yet I am hearing his name in trade rumors constantly. Do you think there is any world where the new general manager would even entertain the possibility of giving him up for the right package?
It's so crazy to think that there is definitely a world that Mackenzie Gore isn't on the Nationals after the trade deadline, because if the right trade package comes along, I think any GM would be silly to immediately say, well, no, we can't trade that guy for the right deal. And Mackenzie Gore is a guy I think a lot of teams would be looking for. And for the Nationals, who are in a year again where you're not taking a huge step forward, you're not where you thought you might be, I don't think it's out of the question. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Mike DiBartolo has already said that he wants to keep this young core together. That is something that's very important to him, to continue to grow off the stars that we have here. So I don't think it's going to happen. But then again, you never say never when you see a return and say, oh, wow, okay, that was worth it. But I think it has to be worth it, because this Nationals fan base, I think, would lose their minds if you list out a Mackenzie Gore and the future that he has here, especially the way he's taking a step forward this year, for three players we're not going to see for 3 more seasons. So I'd be very interested to see what those trade packages look like, but I think Mackenzie Gore is still wearing a curly W.
So when we're out there, July 31st, 6 p.m., that's the deadline here. We're approaching it. We have to think about the Nats, not just about Mackenzie Gore. What's the sense around the team? Should we expect the Nationals to be active, quiet? Veterans like Josh Bell, Nathaniel Lowe, Kyle Finnegan, Mike Soroka feel like they've all come up in rumors, and they seem like they would be the right pieces if the Nats are not going to be competitive this year. This is what's going to happen in another direction, where you get rid of the vets and then move on and try to restock the farm system even further.
I definitely think that's likely to happen this year. I think the Nats are at the point where they're going to be sellers again. You need guys like Josh Bell in the clubhouse, because when we talked about CJ Abrams being a vet, and CJ Abrams is 26 years old. So you do need a veteran presence in the clubhouse, where Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Bell do provide that. But at the same time, you also need to restock this farm system, because you can't rely on Josh Bell every night to be your designated hitter and say this is going to be a winning lineup. No offense to Josh Bell, but when you have a young superstar in James Wood and you have CJ Abrams, you have all of these young, fun guys to play with, you want to add more fun to that lineup. So I think bolstering the farm system is going to be the way to do that. So I think we're going to see a few sales from the Nationals perspective, but I don't think it's going to be anything life altering where people are going to say, wow, the Nationals really won the trade deadline this year.
Yeah, I think that's the spot that they're in right now. Like Devin and I spoke about this. Devin was more on the fence of waiting a year to see if them take the next step. I fell in love with the young core, thinking they could be one of those surprise teams like the Tigers we saw. And there's a lot of pieces to be excited about. It just didn't come together this year. I'm still on the train of, I think we could see it next year. So this core, who's there, if you want to add some season on top of the steak, I feel like who the Nats are going to be for the next 5 years, you have the guys in house.
Totally agree.
And one of those guys in-house is Dylan Cruz, who we briefly talked about before. It's interesting. We mentioned how Eli Willits and Ethan Holiday will probably always be compared for a little while down the road. Dylan Cruz was the guy taken after Paul Skeens. And teammates at LSU, we all know what Skeens has done. Dylan Cruz was a lot of people, including Steve and I. We picked him for National League Rookie of the Year preseason. And obviously, things didn't get off to a great start for him. And then when he started playing better, he gets hurt. Any update on Dylan Cruz and when he may be back in the fold here?
So he is pretty close to starting a rehab assignment, which is very exciting news. He's been able to start taking some swings. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to see Dylan in action again. However, this oblique injury has been so tricky for him. And it's a tricky injury for most players just because of the way and the motion that you're swinging. It's caused him a lot more discomfort, I think, than we originally thought it was going to. So in our minds, this is kind of the timeline we thought it would take for him to get all the way better. And I think the worst thing the team could do, or Dylan personally could do, is try to rush back, especially when he was starting off the season not so hot, come back, play through an injury, and for what? Like, that doesn't do anything good for his confidence, for the team. So I'm hoping take some extra time, spend the time doing your rehab assignment, spend some time working in the cages. And then when you feel ready mentally and physically, come back to this organization and show everyone that you are the superstar we all thought you were, but don't rush back. Not now.
Yeah, with these oblique injuries, they're becoming more prevalent out there. Maybe they're just recognizing what it is. They used to just call it just a strain of some sort. They're recognizing where it's coming from. But being a Yankee fan, Luis Heel battling the oblique, he never really was the same pitcher after battling that, because everything you do, whether it's turning or coughing or standing up, everything is core based. And so for Dylan Cruz, who get a lot of his power from that core, it's got to be difficult. So in my opinion, watching a guy like him, it's like, just get right. Because we watched what happened with Evan Carter with the back. Just get right and be ready for next season. I'm not saying shut him down, but you want to make sure he's good, because Evan Carter feels like he's finally realized, because the back is better. So you got to feel right to play right.
Yeah.
So we've already seen Brady House here make his debut. So another young player we're very excited about. And Robert Harsel has gotten some time on the bigs. Who else do you think we might see be called up at the end of the year to get a cup of coffee with the Nats in DC with the big league club?
There is a right-handed pitcher, Marquise Grissom Jr., that I have always really liked. The Nationals drafted him, I'm pretty sure it was last year. He was a relief pitcher in college. They tried to work him as a starter a bit. I think he'll be in the Nationals bullpen by the end of the year. And his changeup is just electric. It is one of my favorite pitches I've ever seen in person. He is so good. And his dad was a big leaguer as well. So he comes from a baseball family. He gets it. He's worked his way up through the Nats farm system pretty quickly. So I think we'll see him by the end of the year. And especially if the Nationals end up moving anyone out of their bullpen, I think he'd be the first guy that they call and bring him up. And he could be really good. And he's someone I'm holding on hope to, that I can say, oh yeah, I liked him way back when.
Yeah, we saw Grissom at the Futures game as well on the 12th, which was awesome to see. Futures games, if you guys are out there as casual baseball fans listening, that's something you need to tune in. Maybe it has to do with changing where it fits on the All-Star schedule, because to me, that's a crown jewel of that weekend to watch these young players go out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, you hit it.
Sorry. I was just
No,
going to
go
say,
ahead,
the
Savannah.
Futures game. The Futures game is one of the coolest events in sports that does not get talked about enough. You are watching these guys who are going to be stars of the future. And if you ever want bragging rights for your friends, tune into one inning of the Futures game. Bring up one name, and the next year when they are like the biggest thing in the world, you can say, oh yeah, I already knew who that was. I mean, please watch the Futures game.
You hit it on the head, and I think that is kind of unique to baseball. That is the most, I guess, fun part of kind of getting to know prospects and deeper into the system, is you get to kind of follow these guys for a little longer before a lot of casual fans even know about them. And then suddenly they're up on the field playing with everybody's eyes on them, and you've already seen what they can do, and you can kind of give a little bit of knowledge. Speaking about that, so we mentioned Grissom, maybe this year. If we look 1 or 2 years down the future, who is someone else that might be a little further away that fans should be excited about?
I think, again, most deep Nationals fans or people that love prospects, like Travis Sakura is a name that will continuously come up. He is going to be so good. There's nothing I can say about Travis Sakura that hasn't already been said. And anything I say is just repeating what everybody else with the baseball mind has said, that Travis Sakura is going to be amazing. But there is one guy that I really like personally. So I'm going to throw his name out there and hope in a few years that everyone's like, oh, that girl does know what she's talking about. Yoel Tejeda Jr., he could be a starter, but I think he'll probably stay as a reliever. We'll see, though. But he's super tall, and he has a 3/4 arm slot. Really nerdy baseball term, everyone. Sorry. But the way that he throws, it really keeps hitters off balance, because you don't know where it's coming from. His release point is just so different. So I like to think that a guy like him has an advantage worked in that's not even baseball related. It's just he's really tall and long. So when you work that in with the rest of his pitches, and he has a 4-pitch mix and everything along those lines, he's a guy that could be really special. And with the right coaching, like, he could be an all-star.
Yeah, Sakura is someone to be really excited about. If you follow any of those pitching GIF or GIF, however they say it out there, they post a lot of his pitches, 101 miles per hour already, and he's 6'6". He's out there just looming over everybody on the mound. So I think it's like really exciting to see. And he's another guy that the Nats fans, like you said, dead on, should be very excited about. All right, so
Shout out to Oh, sorry. I was just going to say shout out to our guy, Chase Selesky, too. He came on here for whatever reason. He's been following us since the beginning of our show. He came on and gave us some time at AAA in the national system now. I don't know about you guys, but I'm hoping that we see him before the big league season is up in the Nationals uniform.
I would love that. That'd be another fun one for Nats fans to watch.
Oh, for sure. He's a great guy. You guys follow him on Instagram as well. Posts a lot of stuff. He likes to golf, all that stuff, but he posts a lot of his baseball journeys as well. We discussed the front office changes, the emergence of the young core, and this year's draft class. When do you think the window is fully open for contention? I discussed it, thought it was this year. Devin's like, no, it's a year later. Nats fans are probably sitting in the seats at Nationals Park, hopeful every single night. But realistically, when are we able to say, this is the window, let's get it started, they're going to be contending for a World Series championship?
Well, I was like you. I thought this year was going to be the year that they took a massive step forward, could have been a wild card team. Like, I was completely sold. So now I'm just going to hedge my bet and say it's next year. I mean, you have to hope that you're not wasting these young, great years of players like James Wood, especially when we're talking about Scott Boras clients. I mean, will they stay with the Nationals? Will they not? So your window is getting smaller and smaller, knowing that these guys are just getting closer to free agency. And will the Nationals keep them? Will they not? Will Scott Boras likely let them hit the market just to see what happens? So you have to hope that, okay, if it wasn't this year, it needs to be next year, because what are you waiting for? I mean, you're looking at who's in your farm system, you're looking at who's on the field now, and I don't see, besides spending big in free agency and signing a few guys and you get some vets out there, but I don't know, there's no other name in the farm system that's like, well, once this guy's here, then they're ready. You have all those guys on your squad now, so it has to be next year, if not the year after. But after that, it becomes almost a waste of these all-stars.
You would think as a new regime, maybe they're going to want to make their mark this offseason by getting at least one big acquisition. I think a lot of people expected it last year. I know in the offseason, we heard some rumors like they're going to try to put a big bat at first base, maybe even a Pete Alonso. As a Met fan, I'm happy that didn't happen. But I remember hearing that rumor. They end up going Josh Bell, Nathaniel Lowe in a trade, which was fine, veterans, but didn't really make that splash. So I wouldn't be surprised. A new regime. I'm not going to throw a name out there, but one of the big fish maybe is going to make National fans kind of buy into this new regime a little bit more. I do want to give you one more question about prospects. So if we step outside of the Nationals organization, you mentioned your work with Baseball America and enjoying following prospects. Is there a prospect, whether they were called up already or maybe not, that you're most excited about going forward?
So I have one that's already been called up and one that hasn't. So Jacob Mizorowski, we saw him play in the All-Star game. I mean, he has made some headlines, but he's so legit. He is such an incredible pitcher. He's another one that, like, when you watch him either live or on TV, that he kind of makes you stop and watch. Yeah. I am all for him, not only being one of the faces of this sport, but being an all-star. After 5 starts, question, what do you think? But he will absolutely be in the all-star game for years to come. He is so impressive. And then a guy who has not made his debut yet that I cannot wait for is Connor Griffin. He's in the Pirates organization. He also, when he swings, the sound that comes off his bat is actually scary. Him and James Wood have been the two that when they hit something, you look and you're like, oh, I didn't realize a bat could make that noise. So he is going to be another one that he's just going to be so good. And hopefully for Pirates fans, gives them another thing to latch onto and say, I think this is our year. Maybe now that we have this guy and this guy and this guy and Connor Griffin, that we're finally going to be good. But don't quote me on that one. That is not my official prediction that the Pirates are going to be good anytime soon.
I love the idea that to get into the Jacob Mizorowski conversation, there was a lot of pushback by, as we mentioned before, the old guard of baseball fans and people that feel a certain type of way about all-stars and how do we assess them. And the best comparison I heard was about Mark Fitridge, who was noticed as the bird, right? So this was the guy in the back in the day before you had the MLB package. You had to wait for this player to come to your American League city to watch him pitch. So people had no idea who he was. And that the showcase was playing on national TV against the Yankees. People came out and saw this guy and were like, I can't believe how amazing he was. And injuries derailed his career. But now that's the All-Star game. The All-Star game is the platform for a guy like Jacob Mizorowski to have the platform for these casual fans to see. People now know O'Neal Cruz's name because he hit a home run, 513 feet in the home run derby. We can't expect people to be consuming all the baseball 365 days a year. So despite him not having the resume quite yet, I think it's important for fans to see the Miz. I think it's important for fans to see these young players, and it may rub people the wrong way, but I said it before to Devin last week. Once you have the Manfred man at second, all bets are off. I think like you forego all tradition and all the things because you're trying to grow the game. And like once it's a slippery slope, but I'm all for it. I'm into what the Savannah Bananas do. You got to get these fans in the fold here.
Because clearly it works. I mean, we're seeing the Savannah Bananas completely take off, and people who then watch baseball games and like, oh, this isn't like that. So then, okay, you don't have to do flips in the outfield, but there are things that you can do, like having young stars that are playing like an all-star. Okay, put them in the all-star game then. I see, 1+1 has to equal 2 all the time, and it's starting to become that way.
And especially
props
with
to him for
it's an exhibition. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. It's an exhibition. So what are we talking about?
Right.
You gotta give it up for him too. Like the way he handled it was fantastic. And as soon as he threw that 98-mile-per-hour slider, I mean, all the other players were wowed, jaws hit the floor, and I think all the viewers forgot that they were upset that he was in the game because it was just incredible to watch.
Yeah, so I think the Savannah Bananas thing is interesting to watch. Like, obviously sold out the Buccaneers Stadium. They're continuing to sell out Major League parks. So something's happening in that regard. I agree with you. I don't think we should be seeing the full Harlem Globetrotters version of baseball, but there's something fun you can pull away from it, that it's the pageantry or just the exposing of the stars. Something like that has to be taken. And, that's not for us to decide. That's for people. That's Rob Manfred and his crew in New York to pull those pieces and find a way to continue the grind. But as we sit here, and we're going to take a break from the baseball conversation, your Instagram bio does profess you as a all-time reality TV show fan. So you actually called yourself a reality TV show expert. So for those out there that enjoy reality TV shows, tell us what are the two best that have stood the test of time, or one that's on right now. So give us the little dose of the medicine that is reality TV show.
Love Island USA everyone is talking about it, or at least it feels that way on all my social medias. It has completely consumed my life. If you don't know, Love Island is filmed in real time. So they are actually on said island while you are watching it, and your votes actually impact what's happening. It is so good because you feel like you're a part of it, and you feel like you know these people, and they get out of the villa at the same time that you're watching it happen. So I love Love Island. It is so fun. It is so trashy reality. Like, I cannot believe I'm actually watching this TV, but in the best way. And then I'm a huge Real Housewives fan. So my two franchises there are New York and Salt Lake City. And if you just want to watch people kind of yell at each other, and they have so much money they don't know what to do with, so they fight about like what gala they're going to that evening, I would highly recommend, because it is very entertaining.
So my wife and I are admittedly, we enjoy trash TV. We tried to get into Love Island last season. We've never watched it. We've watched plenty of other shows that are similar, but I think maybe we couldn't get into it. And maybe the problem is that we were watching it not live. We were watching it like back. So that makes some sense. Maybe we'll have to give it a try again. My two, and this will age me a little bit, I've always been a fan of The Challenge, and that's been on there. To me, that's like the OG, coming from the real world. It's maybe not the same as it used to be, but still something I tune in for. And then I'm not a Real Housewives person, but Summer House on Bravo is a fantastic show. I'll recommend that to anybody listening.
10 out of 10. Both of those are so good. Summer House, like, we could turn this entire podcast into a Summer House chat, and Paige and Craig and all of it. Like, I've got a lot to say on that. So
yeah, and I think there's a definitely a culture. Like, if you type in some of these reality TV shows, people are doing live podcasting about it. This is a full, it might as well be a fan convention level fandom at this point. So I'm a pro wrestling fan, so I can't speak anything on the reality TV aspect of it. WWE and all those folks over there have done things that rival what's going on in Love Island. I am absolutely sure, even though I've never watched it.
you are 100% correct. It is all just about entertainment, and both of these different aspects completely provide the same thing, just like different fonts of how they're providing it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I remember Flavor of Love. I didn't watch it in full, but that, that was
So
Flava Flav. That was like, you see that pop out. And what was the other one? there was a guy, one of the rock stars from one of the bands that he was in.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Is it Brett Michaels?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Rock of Love.
Yeah, Rock of Love too.
Okay.
So good.
Yeah. See, and it all comes full circle because we mentioned before, like sports needing to allow people to kind of look behind the curtain. WWE, to mention wrestling, is starting their own reality show where we get to see behind the scenes on Netflix. Probably going to bring in new fans. So it all goes together. So maybe we'll have to look into reality show podcast with Savannah. We'll take that one step further.
You
Baseball
call me
and reality TV.
anytime. Yes.
All right. So
Well,
to kind of let you get out of here, we want to ask you a question back on baseball. It's prediction time. Everyone's trying to predict who's going to be traded. But looking further down the road, do you have a World Series pick as far as two teams matching up and who comes out of it as the champ?
It's so hard to pick against the Dodgers at this point. I mean, them and the Tigers have both been the most consistent teams all season. So it's hard to say that, oh, there's Stella, everyone.
Hi, Stella.
Pops up on the chair for a cameo. It's hard to pick against either of those teams. What they're doing, they've done it so consistently, and the Dodgers for years have been so consistent. But the fun part about baseball and why I fell in love with it is the underdog story. When the Nationals won, they were 19-31, and then they come back and they win the World Series. I don't want it to be the Dodgers. I don't want it to be, I would like the Tigers. I mean, that story I'm totally content with, but the Dodgers, that's just such a story we've heard so many times before. Like, let's give it up for someone else. That being said, I'm going to take the safe answer and say the Dodgers are probably going to win the World Series. They're going to go back to back, but I'm like going to pick, I think, the Astros to be in the World Series as well, which I'd like to watch anybody beat the Astros. So if it has to be the Dodgers, so be it.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that one over here as a Yankee fan. I probably know what you stand on most of the rule changes because you mentioned being progressive in your thoughts about baseball, but just curious your quick thoughts on the ABS system, making the game faster, what we saw in the All-Star game, and potentially this thing that's very controversial right now, the swing off situation.
Yeah, so being part of Baseball America, I got to watch the ABS challenge system in the minor leagues for the past couple seasons, and it has been great for the game. I hate to take the human element out of the game because pitchers aren't robots, hitters aren't robots. I mean, they're never going to be able to hit 100% of the time, and you do miss a little bit of the human element when the umps are taken out of it. But at the same time, we've watched so many massive moments taken away because of the umpires. So
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of it. I think people are going to end up loving it. And like most things, people will complain. And then 2 years later, they'll forget that this wasn't actually part of the game to begin with. So huge fan. I cannot wait for it to be adopted. It probably will be by this time next year. I'd like to say that, like, oh yeah, we're already halfway through the season. Like, remember when we were talking about this last year as an option? But I think fans are really going to end up liking it because those accounts that track umpires, like, oh, he missed a pitch that's this far outside the zone, and you wonder, how did that happen? Well, that's just not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, and I think with baseball, it's about just micro dosing these things to the fans, and I think that's what the All-Star game was. But yeah, I think that it's great for the game. But you mentioned before, there's been people in the past. Interleague play was blasphemous to people back in the day, changing the game from 154 to 162. How could you do it? The record books are all messed up. So eventually it becomes the norm. But the swing off thing is what's been controversial. Is there a feeling for you that we could see that in the regular season? I'm not saying next year because it's going to take time. Like I said, microdosing people, it's going to take some time to get up there. But let's just say by 2030, are we settling extra inning games past the 12th inning with a swing off?
Would I like to see that? Yeah, I think that's so much fun. I do think that's, though, where we cross over into a little more Savannah Bananas, less old school baseball. So
Yeah.
I don't think we should. However, I love that idea. I think it's fun. I think it's different. And especially when you actually have all of your all-stars still there and you would get to watch the best players in baseball go up, or whoever is playing at that moment in this extra innings game, you get to watch someone play hero still. I think it's really fun, but I don't think we're ever going to see that in actual gameplay. But I've been wrong before.
Well, Devin's pushback was always who's pitching. Who's pitching?
Yeah, I can't get past that. Like, you can't have the swing off was super entertaining, and in the All-Star game, who cares who's pitching? But like, you can't have a coach out there throwing in a meaningful game. Like, I think about, they compare it to the shootout in hockey or even penalty kicks in soccer. in both of those circumstances, you're against a real professional goalie.
Right.
So that's Steve and I went back and forth last time we recorded about like, and I just haven't heard a good solution for it yet. But that's what it kind of sticks with me.
No, that is where you lose the comparison there because it's not the same as a shootout. And baseball has been decided other ways for, however many years.
Right.
I still like the idea that it gets to be the random guy that subs in to pinch hit, and then all of a sudden he gets to play hero of the evening. Like that guy's not going to get the opportunity if you get to pick your 3 best players to go up and swing. And it can't be those guys all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be something to watch as time goes on. We heard at the beginning of the year, we haven't heard much about it since, but the golden at bat thing that was just thrown out there in the world, like maybe that's something we see as a throw apart there in the extra innings. But you've given us a lot of time today, Savannah. We really appreciate it here on this Monday morning. You guys can follow Savannah on Instagram and I believe on Twitter, same handle, right? At SavJay, SAVJAYE. So I'll give you the platform, Savannah, to hype up things you have going on, where people can find you, other projects you've been working on.
Yeah, so I'm really trying to build up my TikTok right now. I've been doing a bunch of prospect deep dives when guys are getting called up and you want to know, more about that guy in a digestible 1-minute clip rather than reading about it. That's where I've been posting a lot of my stuff. So it's same handle as well at SavJay, SAVJAYE. So follow me on TikTok, follow me on Twitter. Got a lot more fun things coming up. Continue to watch on MASN. I'll be hosting Nats Extra actually later this evening. So if you want to watch a Nationals game, you'll find me there.
Awesome. Savannah, you're always welcome on here to have a conversation. Devin, any final questions or thoughts?
No, I'm just going back to the reality show stuff. I'm trying to think about if I'm actually going to give Love Island another chance. Do you think I should? Does watching it live really make the difference? That's my question to you.
It really makes a difference because these people aren't on their social medias, like live tweeting along with you, like just wait and see what happens next week. Instead, you're watching these people and everything that's happening live, and they come back on their social media 6 weeks later, like, oh my God, what just happened to me? So you have to watch it live. I also I love Survivor too. It's like a vote that I get to be a part of. So in.
All right, maybe I'll give it another shot.
Yes.
So you guys can check out all the things going on MASN. Like we said before, Savannah's over there tonight. So check them out pregame for the Nats and everything going on there. And check out Love Island in your off time when baseball's in the off season. Consume all the Love Island you guys want. Savannah, thank you so much. And we'll be back in 1 second. All right. Want to once again thank Savannah McCann for jumping on with us and talking all things Nationals. What a timely conversation with the draft just passing by, the change in regime with Davey, Martinez, and Mike Rizzo being let go. I thought it was a great insight and a lot of honesty into where this team is, which I appreciated.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well, actually. We've been fortunate enough to talk to a lot of people that work for different teams, whether it be radio people, TV people, pregame, postgame, things like that. And sometimes, even though the interviews are great, you could tell that when we talk about maybe someone being fired or someone being traded or re-signed, sometimes they're a little hesitant to kind of give a detailed response because they're close to the organization. Savannah, I felt like was super honest about certain circumstances, whether it be a Mackenzie Gore or the recent letting go of Rizzo and Davey Martinez. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the perspective she has on the game, especially being, upfront about being honest where she was with her relationship with the game prior to working for the Nats and really seeing baseball close up and falling in love with it. Because I think if you start diagnosing that, there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way. I'm sure you have people in your life, Devin, that you talk to that say, how do you watch baseball every night? It's boring. And you and I can't see it because we have the glasses on. We can see exactly what now Savannah's seeing. It's important to get people to see those things. And it might take the casual fan to come in with something extraordinary or something that we feel is ridiculous, but that's the type of stuff that brings fans all different backgrounds into the game. So her approach to where she sees the game is so important because that's the person that's going to grab someone that would be resistant in the first place. So shout out to Savannah and what she's doing.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting to talk to someone who is not necessarily a lifelong baseball fan, but got into it later because you can feel that different perspective that maybe we don't think about as much and how they see the game as it is now. It's like a fresh perspective. The last thing you want to do as a hardcore baseball fan is gatekeep the game and try to keep people that were not lifelong fans out of it. I go back, I tell this story all the time. I went to the University of Delaware, and my freshman year there, my roommate, who I ended up living with all 4 years, during the spring said to me, because I was watching Mets games every single night, MLB TV, and he asked me, he's like, "How in the world do you watch this so often?" And I told him, I said, "Listen, if you sit down and watch with me and you ask any questions that come up," he was a sports fan, just not baseball, Phillies fan, if he had to choose. If you sit and watch with me or a real baseball fan and talk to the person about it as the game goes on, you will get more and more hooked into the game and the ins and outs. And sure enough, I always say I created a monster because I think just a few years later, the Phillies won the World Series in our senior year, I believe. And then I kind of regretted it because he's celebrating as, and I was like, I wish I never taught him baseball. And honestly, I used to, after college, I lived with someone who was a hardcore soccer fan. I am not at all a soccer fan. But when I would watch games with him, I found myself getting into it because he would teach me things that I didn't necessarily know the ins and outs and why things were happening. And that really goes a long way into getting into something.
Yeah, it's a great story. And I think there's a lot to be said about the gatekeeping. That's the appropriate verb because there's this protection of the game that they know more than you. And if you're a casual fan, it's intimidating to jump in and have the conversation or ask the questions because you feel like a novice and you can't be able to celebrate your team or you're a front runner or whatever, like this label gets placed on fans that I don't think a lot of sports in other capacities don't have. Like you think about the NFL or the NBA, people just buy the jersey of their favorite player and they become of this team for however amount of time. And that's what we see, the normalization of just being fans of stars. And maybe that's what it's going to take for the MLB to take the next step where you may just have a James Wood fan and not a fan of a team per se. They're fans of athletes. Cause I think that's where NBA started taking the next step. And we're starting to get deep in the weeds here, but when LeBron James and like the super teams were created, people became fans of players more so than teams. And there are the
Oh,
diehard
yeah.
fans of every team. I think that may change with baseball. Like you may just see more, and we have never seen that. So of course, people are like, I love Ken Griffey Jr. and I love Albert Pujols, but I think there's a loyalty to the laundry more so than the people inside the laundry.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And that reminds me, one of the schools I used to work at, one of the teacher assistants was a hardcore basketball fan, really good player himself too. And it was so strange to me. He was a LeBron James fan. He wasn't necessarily had one team. Whichever team LeBron James went to, he was then that fan, which blew my mind and didn't uh, sit right with me for a while, until I get used to it. But like I was there working with him when LeBron James made a switch to a new team. I think when he went to the Lakers, maybe. I've lost track of time, honestly, but it blew my mind. I couldn't imagine that in baseball, but who knows? And to go back to individual players, one of my favorite answers of Savannah's was when we asked about James Wood and her kind of using the term of just like low heart rate, like he is who he is at all times. Nothing seems to get to him. That's the kind of guy that you just have to believe is going to be absolute superstar. I feel like he's already blown the doors off everybody's expectations. I remember preseason, I was looking on DraftKings at some of the over and unders for people's numbers. And I want to say his home run number was like 17 and a half or something like that. I'm sure someone out there listening might know the exact number and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember looking at it thinking like that just seems awfully low, especially if he's starting on the big league club. And I don't think I bet on it. I think I hesitated just with the mindset of like, oh, Vegas knows something I don't know. He's going to be a rookie. He'll struggle. But like I should have went with my gut because obviously that number was insane as far as usually Vegas gets it almost perfectly correct. And that one was so off. But going back to her answer on that, I thought that was very telling that that's what she thinks of when she thinks of James Wood.
Yeah, and the one thing to watch over time, and we mentioned this last week when we spoke about the home run derby, and shout out to Dugout Dispatch who quoted our tweet talking about the profiles of players that has shifted, where you see a guy that is James Wood, the size, the athleticism, what he brings to the table, where you probably would have seen that person go play a different sport years prior. But now baseball has, for whatever reason, attracted guys like O'Neal Cruz, James Wood, Ellie De La Cruz, all these guys that have this, I mean, the size, the athleticism, like what James Wood does is unlike things that we've seen from players. That's not a player you would have seen get drafted in the MLB or have the ability to draft them because they didn't have, I think MLB always would have had them, but the NFL or the NBA has been more of the spot that they wound up because of maybe the money, the fame, et cetera, that baseball felt like it was, like we talked about before with Savannah in the beginning, boring or contrived or whatever. It's gonna be interesting to watch, especially as like the younger players. And let's not forget, James Wood was born 2002. Since that time in his life, we've become more aware of head injuries and concussions and
Oh yeah.
CTE, all those things. So we're going to see a generation of players that maybe they wanted to play football, but their parents wouldn't let them as kids, and then they started picking up a bat and a glove, and all of a sudden they're baseball players. So it's going to be really fascinating to watch now, because 2002, man, like that's Hogan and Rock, WrestleMania 18. This dude was not born yet. What are we talking? Like, he was born 5 months after that match happened in Toronto. Like, blows my mind.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
insane.
Travis.
And you're making me. I'm sitting over here with my boot on and my torn Achilles, nearing 40 years old, and now you're making me feel even older. I suddenly feel like I'm 55, 60. But yeah, I mean, the good news for the Nationals is they have a few of those guys, those young stars. Wood, we mentioned Abrams, Brady House playing pretty well up there, and still more to come. So lots. I know Nats fans are a little frustrated, but there's still so much to be excited about in the upcoming future for them.
So if you guys, again, want to support our show, you can follow us at Tablesetters Pod. You can go to Dugout Mugs and use code TS10 to save 10% at checkout for the great products they have over there. It helps and goes a long way. You can leave a 5-star review for us and help people spread the word. There's been a lot of love put on our podcast as of late, so we want to give a lot of kudos to those people and it feels good. It feels like validation. Some of the feedback we've been getting on these episodes as we work hard as we approach episode 100. So yeah, Devin, I mean, good job to you. You keep securing amazing guests. Savannah McCann was another great get. And hopefully we continue to bring all the different baseball perspectives to this platform, Tablesetters.
Yeah, and just to update on future episodes here. So we told you last week to expect this episode, and we delivered on this one. Thank you to Savannah for coming on. We mentioned Lance Brozdowski, player analyst, works for the Cubs as well. Hoping that we could get him on this week. It turns out that's probably not going to happen. We're still in contact with him. It may happen post deadline. Super busy dude right now, understandably, but we'll update you on that one. Still hopefully in the works. And we have gotten back in touch with one of our friends, former guest, Matt Devine from Devine Sports Gospel, the DSG, covering all things San Diego, but also just a baseball fan. We're hoping to have him on soon, hopefully pre-trade deadline, to kind of, yes, we'll talk about Padres, Dodgers, the rivalry, but we might have him on just for a regular episode as well and just talk around the league like we usually do. And whether we have a guest later this week or not, I would think if we don't, we'll probably still give you one more episode before the week is over. So tune in, come right back, because we won't be gone for too long.
Yeah, as we approach the trade deadline, which is one of the more monumental days in baseball, we have to consider how we play that out. I know that the trade deadline winds up being on a Thursday this year at 6 p.m. So maybe if we decide to record like an episode this week to preview the trade deadline, and maybe we do one next week around the trade deadline, it would be cool to do something like that, because as we know, the news cycle moves so damn fast that we could be sitting here, record, let's just say next Monday, and it's just like, well, now there's all this other news to break down. So we try our best to keep everyone abreast of everything going on. And shout out to Divine Sports Gospel, one of my favorite guests we've ever had. It's going to be interesting to have him on to talk not just San Diego Padres. Of course, he's going to be talking about all the great stuff going on over there, but a lot of the things are going around the league. The guy is a very knowledgeable baseball fan. If you watch the post game that no one asked for, that they continue to put on their social media, love it. He has me rooting for the Padres a lot of times. I'm like, I want to see this dude smile and be happy, and and also it's screw the Dodgers forever.
Yeah, same. I was telling Steve before we came on that I had scrolling through old reels of ours, and I came to the one with Matt from DSG on where we were talking about Roki right after he signed. A lot of Padres fans had been hopeful that he'd sign with San Diego, and it's maybe the funniest reel of ours that I've ever put up, and it just reminded me how fun that time was recording with him, which is why we reached out. And like we said, we'll update you soon, but hopefully we get him on as soon as possible.
So on our way out the door, again, I mentioned follow us on social medias at Tablesetters Pod on Instagram and on Twitter. That's why you can support the show, engage with it. Devin running the Twitter machine over there, posting reels, having conversations. As we mentioned, Devin healing from an Achilles injury, and the content has never been brighter and faster. We got some threads popping up, making the case for David Wright being a Hall of Famer.
Oh, that was controversial. Yeah. A lot of people did not like that. Good for conversation, though.
It's part of the conversation, though. And I know that's how you really feel, and we can definitely break that down another time. But you look at the peak of David Wright, you put him up there, like the peak of David Wright.
We need a good amount of time. Listen, I don't mind the discussion and the disagreement as long as it's respectful. I had some people in the comments just saying ridiculous stuff like, just fanboy stuff like that. Like, I thought it was a good discussion. And then I had other people where I went back and forth with very respectfully, and we were not going to agree, but I think we came to an understanding of the sides we each had and our own thoughts. So that's what I like. I'm glad it caused some discussion, but definitely some people that were not happy about it. But yeah, you're right. I have more time on my hands than usual. So lots of posting on X and Instagram.
And shout out to the New York Metropolitans for the ceremony for David Wright. I thought Howie Rose, his speech out there for David Wright, really well done. And this is something, and I don't want to throw salt on the wound for a Met fan of a long time. I felt like years ago they would have got wrong. And then they seem like with this ownership, they get it all right. This feels very much adjacent, professional, felt poised. Everything felt how it should be, honoring a player that might be your best player in franchise history.
Yeah, you're right. Honestly, years ago, they probably would have somehow gotten it right. I mean, even when he started speaking, it like just started raining. You saw it like the drops, like right when they uncovered his number, it like started raining. Like, this is so typical Mets, but it only like drizzled for a couple minutes and then it was all good. The sun came out. So it did seem like a little bit of a new day.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll be back on a new day, possibly later this week with another guest. We'll keep you guys up to date. We're going to be talking all things baseball. But until that time, we will talk to you after a while.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.